The following is a public access production. It is not produced, sponsored, or endorsed by this station, the local government, or the cable providers. The program producer is solely responsible for the content of this program.
Hello, welcome to John McHugh. Thanks for joining me. As you know, I like to introduce you to area real estate professionals, and today we have a special guest with us, Melissa Davis. Melissa?
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Melissa and I have been on working together at Cobalt Banker for many years, and we've become friendly, and I've got to really see how she does business, and I enjoy working with her and alongside her, and I wanted to ask you, what made you want to get into real estate?
Well, I have a wonderful family member who was in real estate who I shadowed for a number of years. And she's the one who kind of recruited me in.
How is she related to you?
She is my husband's cousin, and she was a wonderful mentor, and she was the one who pulled me in, and I shadowed her on inspections. I went along with her on showings. She brought me along in presentations when she was listing. And it took me quite a little bit of time. It was just me dragging my feet, and she convinced me to get my license. And I did, and finally when I did, I signed the dotted line along and just joined Coldwell Banker and often, running.
So you're one of the few people probably that has been with Coldwell Banker only since you started real estate, other than me.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it interesting? Sometimes we see people, they'll be with multiple real estate companies. They'll start with one, they'll move on to another, they'll come back. But I've been with Coldwell Banker the whole time, just for personal preference. I've had no need to change it. And you did change locations though, right? We were both here in the Natick office, and then that was built into the Framingham regional office, correct?
Correct. Natick and Framingham merged together, and we had a much larger office built out. And it's now in Framingham, and I just moved to the Framingham Natick regional office, and unfortunately you decided to move to the Wellesley office.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And so even though we're not in the same office anymore, we do still keep in touch.
And we've kept in touch from day one when we met and got along. I was in the Wellesley office before and then moved to the Natick office, and then so when that closed, we went our separate ways, but we still work together all the time and maintain a close relationship, and that's really important when you need someone to refer to another area or to assist you, or if we have somebody who wants to write a direct offer on our listing, sometimes we'll bring somebody else in and do these things together so that it all works out in the end in the best interest of the client, which is great.
Which we've done before.
We have done before, successfully before, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Really, it's been a good experience. What areas do you focus on, Melissa? I mean, we all work in most all areas as listing agents and as buyer's agents. Where do you try to focus on the most?
Well, I'm out of the Framingham Natick office. I do most of my business in the Framingham area. I live in Stowe, so I do focus in the Stowe area. So I'd say mostly around between the Framingham-Stowe area. But if you were to look at my business, it's a lot of different towns, many different towns.
Mine too. From Boston all the way out to Situate, I've shown, which is a wide range. It's easier when you have a listing if it's in the area here, because then you can service it, you're super knowledgeable about it. But what I told people before, and let me know if you agree with this, is that we can become an expert in any area very quickly by really doing a study of what's on the market, what's sold, how long did it take to sell, more importantly, what hasn't sold and at what price. Would you agree with that? Absolutely.
You can get all that information right at your fingertips by going in MLS. It's super easy. It's easy to share with your clients. It's very easy to analyze, but at least for me, with my accounting background and my numbers.
Right, yes. Melissa comes from an accounting background, and how long did you do that for?
Too many to count, then I'm going to tell people my age.
Right.
No, I'm
no,
kidding.
I wasn't looking to pry. to pry on that. But I think that that brings a special skill to the table, somebody who's really good with numbers, because this real estate can be a numbers game when we take a look at how much money you're putting down, what you're going to need to improve it, what percentage you're going to take as a mortgage, what it's going to be worth.
What's your budget?
Exactly. And what type of questions do you ask a home buyer when they're looking to go out and buy, when it comes to a budget and whether they're going to do work or looking for something that's ready to go?
We talk about the budget. We talk about how much do you want to spend every month, because not only within their budget, you got the principal, you got the interest, you got the taxes, you got insurance. You know, if they're not putting 20% down, we got to talk about PMI. We got to talk about different things that maybe they haven't thought about. So, you know, especially if they're first-time home buyers, there's just a number of things that maybe they haven't thought about. Like, we also got to talk about what are some of the expenses while they're buying. You got to talk about what the attorney expenses are. You got to talk about inspection expenses, like those one-off expenses that people aren't aware of. You got to talk about closing costs and things along that nature, because that's a big cost. You're prepaying your escrows that they don't understand. So I can explain that piece of it as well pretty well with, you know, accounting and property management background as well. So
right, that comes in handy,
yeah.
Right? It does. And you're a professional no matter what you're doing, which is great. And you also were in a line of work where you work with people. I think that's, you know, being in any type of a service-oriented business is good when you wind up starting to work with the public and face-to-face. What do you think that some of the buyers, today's buyers, might have as the biggest misconception about the home buying process?
That it's difficult, I think, in today's market. I don't think it's necessarily that difficult if you have the right agent.
I agree.
I think that if you have the right agent is going to direct you and give you advice as to how to be pre-approved, what kind of pre-approvals are going to make you stand out, what can you write in the offer when there's a multiple offer situation that's going to make you stand out. That it can be easier than what you might be hearing in the news or from other people who are currently maybe doing in the buying process, that I think it's actually could be easier with the right agent.
You know, I'll speak up because I have personal experience with this when it comes to Melissa, in that I had an offer, I had 5 offers on a property for one of our listings in Wellesley recently, and I was working with someone who had been in business for many years, and she has retired to another state. And so when they have somebody come into town that they've been working with for years, they'll call me in to help them. And this person has decades of experience, and it comes from a time where things were done a little bit more differently, a little bit more slowly and diligently. And she was looking at over all the offers, because we do it together, and she pointed yours out and said, "This Melissa Davis is phenomenal. The way that she presented the offer, the way that she wrote a summary and gave a background of the buyer, and the fact that she had taken the buyer through all the steps in the process and had them pre-approved and had all the paperwork and everything done and submitted it in one package. So whatever your client was ready to present, you really had them put their best foot forward and made it clear for everyone to be able to sit and say, we have an idea of what this is. Here's the price and the terms, and take it from there." She was super impressed by that, and I was too. So I think that when it comes to someone working with you as a buyer, that they're in great hands. And you've worked with a lot of buyers, more than sellers, do you think?
I did analysis last year, and I'm probably about 55-45.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
But thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the truth. And I've seen you working with buyers, and it's working with buyers and sellers. They're both a real challenge and both super fun. And the job is very different depending upon who you're representing. I've basically been working as a home seller's representative more often than a buyer's representative recently. And I think it's been a seller's market, so that could be a little bit easier. When you're out there with buyers, it can be a little tough. But like you said, trying to get that exact perfect picture of an offer doesn't necessarily mean you're going to always offer more money.
Right.
But to frame your offer in a way that it most likely might be accepted. When you're marketing a listing, what's the most creative things that you've come up with to get the attention and the spotlight on your property listing?
On my property listing, oy, that's a good question.
Well, you are very creative. I know you are.
Well, I have something that I'd like to start. You want to hear what
I'd
my
love
little
to.
plan?
Yes.
You're gonna laugh because it is kind of me. But my plan now with new listings is actually you're gonna die.
Let's see if I die.
Is I'm gonna I'm gonna have like my video, and I'm gonna work with the photographer, and in the beginning of the video I'm gonna introduce my new home, my new listing, and say welcome to 123 Main Street, talk about 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, whatever it is. Have my little video, of all the photos, the lovely photos that my wonderful photographers are gonna be taking, and then at the end, kind of wrap it up. But I'm going to be hidden somewhere in the video. And what I'm going to say in the video in the beginning is basically, I'm going to be hidden in the video. Can you find me? And if you can find me, comment. Just say, I see you, or I can see you, but don't say where, because we don't want to wreck it for everybody else. And then at the end, I'll say, were you able to find me?
You'd watch that video, wouldn't you? You'd be stuck watching a real estate video to find Melissa, right? I like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to be hidden somewhere in the video, and I'm going to work with the photographer and find some really...
See, that sounds like fun. Anything that's a little bit outside of the box can be fantastic when you're trying to bring your attention to yours.
I got 2 listings coming up, so we'll have to wait and see.
What towns?
I have one in Wayland and one in Stowe.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. Wayland is a hot market. I had another creative thing that I had to laugh. We had an agent named Adele David, who is a legend in the Wellesley office, and she put out a rider. Riders that will say outside on the house, at the top of the sign, it'll say, this house has everything. She made a different one. She said, this house needs everything.
That's awesome.
It was hysterical, yeah. But you know what? It got tons of attention. It had people looking at it and commenting, and it was a great way to say that this is something that a handyman might want to buy and renovate or something like that. But it was a different approach.
And it's honest.
And it was honest. It was super creative, and it was very honest. Melissa, what's your favorite part of the job?
People.
People. That's nice.
Yeah.
Working with people every day. A little bit of a different experience every day.
Yep.
How about maybe the most memorable transaction you've worked on? I have a number. I mean, I've been doing it for almost 25 years, so I have a number of things that stand out for me. But do you have a most memorable transaction or a part of a transaction?
Most memorable one is I had one transaction 2 days before the closing. I was representing the buyers. Randomly, a tree from the neighbor's house fell and tore the back deck off the house.
You're kidding. 2 days before the closing.
And so I was working with the attorneys and the other buyer, and the seller was wonderful, don't get me wrong, but working on how are we going to handle this? That was a first. And having that conversation with my clients 48 hours before you're supposed to close. And when I'm talking about a deck, like a massive deck, not like a little 10 by 10 deck, I'm talking like a massive
Now that's
deck.
Memorable.
And yeah, we handled it. We figured it out and closed on time, and they got a brand new deck.
Good for you. And so you kept it I think keeping it together, having the ability to keep it together, is a skill that you're very good at there.
And
we never know what's going to come up.
No, and my buyers were totally, I mean, we went to the house, we checked it out, immediately, and we worked with the attorneys, and everybody knew it was an issue, and we knew the seller's insurance was going to cover it, but how are we going to handle it now in order to close on time? And what can we do so that everybody was happy and that everybody was going to be made whole, and everybody was happy in the end.
And I'm glad to hear that. That's great. Nowadays, we wind up working remotely quite a bit, doing a lot from home. I know you're one that's like me. You'd like to do a lot in the office. It's good to be in there, hear the buzz of what's going on, and see and be seen. It's amazing how much you pick up just from hearing what other agents have to say, and all of that. Has it changed over the last few years? Do you do a little more at home, or do you a little more in the office?
I personally like to be in the office because I feel that I work better in the office than if I'm at home. That's just me.
I agree.
So I like to get my tuchus in the office. So I find myself more in the office than at home.
That's good. And I think that that's the way that it started, and I think that's the way that most people do work, and I think it's the most successful way for everybody. So when you're out there looking for property listings or for buyers, what have you found some of the best ways to advertise your business? What's your favorite and the biggest bang for the buck, as they would say?
Bang for the buck. Well, I use Listing Concierge through Coldwell Banker, which I think is fabulous and totally worth the money.
I use it too.
I don't know why you wouldn't use it. I also am a big component of personal letters and notes. I handwrite a lot of personal notes along with mailing. So I might write things to neighbors of listings that I might have recently sold, and I seem to get responses from that. Where they call and whatnot. So that seems to be a big component.
That's
but
nice.
I do think Listing Concierge is really the main.
I agree with you 100%, and it's a great opportunity that agents at Coldwell Banker have to present and prepare and market and advertise a listing, and I use that as well. I think that's a creative way to do things, and I think that when we put it all together, whatever's going to work best for that client and the property are the best way to get it out there. So you do a lot of handwritten notes and a lot of mailing and constant contact with your clients like that on a personal level. What type of things do you see coming in the industry technology-wise? Other than Listing Concierge, what type of technology do you find works well for you as an agent in real estate?
That helps me is being an accountant, clear, concise, and to the point. So I'm not as elaborate as you are, John, with your listings, and I always read your listings and how wonderful your verbiage and how
I don't know about that.
Descriptive it is. Well, what helps me is I can get all of the details in there and check off all the boxes and put in all the info, but the last thing I always leave is the description and whatnot so I use, with the help of AI, I do use that to kind of help me enhance.
Do you know, someone told me that they think that's the hardest part. When my first couple years in the business said, this is the hardest part of the business. This description.
It
so
is.
That's so funny that you said that. Because everybody wants to have a great description of their property.
I do, because mine is like factual. I'm clear, concise, and I'm to the point. That's the accountant in me coming out. My personality may not be, but when I describe things, it's clear, concise, and to the point. I'm going to tell you facts, but I'm not eloquent like you are with your descriptions.
Well, I don't know about that. I appreciate that.
I'm just going to give it to John to write.
I'd be glad to help you in any way I could, but you know what? I think yours are fine. How do you stay ahead of the curve when it comes to being industrious and market trends when you're out there? Because I know that you have different ways of doing things. I've seen it, and I want to know, how do you stay out there and on the leading edge?
I just try to think outside the box.
All right, that's a good way to do it.
How can I make my seller's offer stand out? I'm sorry, my buyer's offer stand out amongst the rest?
Right. Well, you do a good job of it. It's hard for us to sit here and describe everything that I'm talking about when it comes to making one offer a little bit better than another, even if we're not increasing the price. But feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions. We're more than happy, Melissa Davis or myself. Do you ever listen to any podcasts about real estate or things like that? Any other realtors talking? I listen to Houseo and some of the trends, especially with a lot of the laws changing, and I watch some YouTube videos. Do you ever do any videos, podcasts you're into?
To be honest, no, because I have kids and I'm usually too busy to do that.
Fair enough. Everybody has a life as well.
like,
and you need to do it.
I don't even watch TV half the time now.
And you're honest about all of it.
I am. Did you see my facial reaction?
You are
after
honest,
you,
and I
asked the
appreciate
question?
it.
I'm like, no.
I appreciate it completely. So when it comes to having kids and all that, how do you manage your workflow when it comes to what you have to do 7 days a week with kids and a husband and living in the town of Stowe?
It takes a village to raise kids. I'm fortunate now that my kids are a little bit older, so if I do have to do a showing, I am able to leave them home for an hour or so if my husband isn't home.
Of course.
And that's fine. But what's been actually fortunate with COVID is that a lot of buyers now are more flexible with their timing in terms of showings. So I can do them more during the day, then it's not always on the evenings and weekends.
Right.
So it's been great that way. I've just been fortunate with that. I've been able to work it out in with my schedule and with my buyer's schedule or my seller's schedule.
Well, that's something we all have to do. I agree with you. And the fact that you make it work.
I give more than one option. So it's like, hey, you know, I'll give 3 or 4 options. I'm free on this day at this time, or a window of time. Like I'm free at this window of time. Does any of this time work for you? And if not, then I'll go back to my calendar and I'll look again, or tell me what time works best for you, and then I'll look and see what can I do to kind of shuffle things around.
See, if I were in real estate, that's something I would find interesting. Like, how do we make it work when we're doing a family, working 7 days a week, and making sure that we can be there whenever anybody wants to be in there and see it. One of the things that I always will mention when I'm talking to a potential seller client is, once you give somebody that listing and you sign the paper and they're going to be representing you in the sale of your home, you don't really know what's going on. And I'll tell you something that I've learned, frankly, the hard way, is when I have a buyer that wants to see a house, and this has been over years, and I may reach out and say, I have a buyer, well qualified, would like to see this property, and I'll hear something along the lines of, oh, not tomorrow. Oh, no. Oh, well, not then either. I'm like, sometimes I feel just a bit of, well, what are we here for? You know, the whole point is I can't sell it unless I can show it, and you just never know who you're turning your home over to. Do you know what I mean when I talk about that?
Don't you want to sell the house?
Yeah, exactly. To
In
keep
my
it
head?
moving.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we get it done no matter what we can do, but you're clearly forthright in the way that you deal with all of it, and I appreciate that you're like that. It makes everything work better for the buyer and the seller, and keeping the goals together. If you could speak to any real estate industry leader in the world and have a conversation with them, who would you pick? I would probably pick somebody who is about to retire and has been at the top of their game for so long, and ask them, was it worth it the whole time? That's probably what I would do. And there are many people that are like that I could choose. How about yourself?
No. Oh, good Lord.
Any real estate industry, great leader, any conversation, who might it be?
Jeez. What would I ask them? I don't know. I have no idea.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. What I'm trying to think also is, if you could talk to anybody and get some advice, what's the best advice you've ever got from a mentor?
From a mentor, just keep at it. Like, real estate is not easy. I know people always think
you make it look easy, Melissa. You do, especially for your buyers.
Put on a mask. It's not easy. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. You don't want to see my checklists.
This is true. It's a lot of work, and it's good to hear the truth, right?
There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that we try to keep. We want to make everything smooth as possible, and so I just try to make sure that things happen as seamless as possible, and I only will address things to my clients if they really need to be addressed. If it's something that I can take care of and manage and not have to get my client involved, well, then I'll do that. I don't want to wrinkle something if I don't need. If I can take out the wrinkle, I will take out the wrinkle.
So you're assuming all of the hard work and assuming all of the worry and putting it all on your shoulders for your clients.
With a smile.
With a smile, to deliver it to the closing table as effortlessly as possible. And I mean, I think that's a big part of it, is taking on all the challenges and making sure we can have a transaction for a buyer or seller client that is as seamless as possible from beginning to end. And you do a good job with it. How many years have you been doing it?
Since 2019.
2019, that's a good long time. And when do you think you'll retire from it?
Whenever I'm tired of it, and I don't foresee myself getting tired of it. I still love it. Every day I get up and I'm like, who's the next victim?
Who are you going to run into today? What's the excitement going to be today? I always think the same thing too. I've let people know that I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. So if it's not today, don't feel obligated today. If it's tomorrow, then I'll be here tomorrow, because there's no rush. It's whatever works best for you and your schedule. But Melissa, I want to thank you for joining us today. I asked some tough questions, and you handled them all. You handled them beautifully. It's a pleasure to work with you. I always enjoy your company in and out of work, and I thank you for joining us.
I'm looking forward to our next deal together.
The next deal it'll be, and we'll let you know all about it next time on John McHugh. Thanks for joining us.